Welcome to today's technical analysis video. This is our daily stock trading series. My name is Eric Lewis, and today we're going to take a look at Ford Motor Company, one of the historic car makers and historic American companies. And this is, even though I'm recording it a little later, this is using data from November 27th. I'm actually recording this on Thanksgiving. So if you're here in the U.S., I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. But let's talk stock and look at Ford. So here's a one-year chart of this company. You can see we've come off of highs and we're kind of middling. We're kind of middle price of where we have been over the last year. When you throw in the moving average, you see that the 10-day is below the 20-day, but the 50-day is sort of in between the 10 and the 20. Now, these are all a penny apart. I don't like that, so I'm going to, regardless of the order, I would say that this is inconclusive, but certainly with the 50-day moving average between the 10 and the 20, this is an inconclusive chart pattern. But whenever these moving averages are this close or this tightly packed, you're better off just going with inconclusive, because you always have to be aware of false signals when you're dealing with technical analysis. You want to stick with clear signals, trends that are very easy to see. So let's take a look at the 5-year, and that gives us a little bit better perspective. You can see we've been in a bit of a downtrend over these last 5 years and have actually pulled up a little bit where we are now, trying to pull back up this year. But still, when you look at these moving averages, and of course these are weekly bars on this chart, so you see the 10-day is lower than the 20, which is lower than the 50. So these are actually in order right now for prices to go lower on a 5-year basis. But again, I'd like there to be a little bit more space to get a clear signal, like what we saw. Many of these dips, like what I'm circling here, back in mid 2018, where there's a significant amount of distance between each of the moving averages, just makes for a more clear signal. Now here's a look at the Fibonacci retracement of the last few months. We had a downward move, a move lower from we'll call this mid-July through really early October. Kind of doubled back in late October, but just looking at this, and we actually did right after an earnings reach just about the 50% level. Actually, it looks like we crossed the 38.2% level in the Fibonacci, pulled on back, and we really appeared like it looks like we might go back to test that level, but we've not reached that again over the last month. So this Fibonacci, I would say, it's always good when you realize that we've reached a level, but once we have crossed the level, the truth is, if you don't push for higher levels, oftentimes they're not going to happen. So here is a look at the MACD. Now what's interesting here in the MACD is that of course we've got a situation where we've had a cross under the zero line, which typically means that we're about to head higher, meaning under this zero line, down in this region below the zero line is the oversold region. Up here above it is the overbought. So when we cross underneath the zero line, it typically is a bullish sign. But with these this current signal being so tight, even right around the zero line, again, I would go with inconclusive on the Fibonacci. So let's just look at some straight up old school pattern recognition. What's visual? And when I first started doing technical analysis, I would print out these charts, or you could actually go really old school and just track the daily price and graph it, and then do these charts by hand. Thankfully now I can do it fairly easily with any number of computer programs. But here over the last 2 months, I'm looking at this like, hey, this might be a sideways price channel, and so I'm not going to really look to buy or sell this stock until we really are out of this channel. And when you look at it on a 5-year chart, as I mentioned earlier, you have a pretty steady downward move. We've had points where we spiked below it. We've had points where we spiked above this range. So this isn't the holy grail by any means, but it's just a way of getting a visual of what's going on in this stock. And clearly over the last 5 years, it's been one directional, and that's lower. So overall, Ford stock is trading near their 5-year lows. The moving averages, of course, for the 1-year and 5-year, closer to being inconclusive because the lines are so tightly packed, or they're out of order, like in the case of the 1-year chart. We actually reached the 38.2% level, not the 50% level, of that July to October pullback. And then the 1-year MACD is crossing the zero line, signaling bullish momentum. But these numbers are so close together that I'd be more worried that they are a false signal. So overall, Ford appears to be in a short-term sideways channel, and of course a 5-year downward trend. There's no clear technical indication that this stock is going to head higher. And when you're already trading near 5-year lows, do you bet on shorting it? So the question is, what's the trade, Eric? Well, just thinking off the top of my head, if I were going to trade this thing, it's hard to justify buying it until we see a breakout. So if I were going to look to buy this thing, I would definitely wait for a breakout above the current levels. Maybe we would go back and test some of these Fibonacci retracement levels. Like you've got 9.5 being the 50%, 9.26 being the 38.2. So maybe if we blow past that, it might be worth buying, seeing if you can capture a little bit of the move between. But again, I would be more prone to wait in this scenario and just let the data let the data tell you where the stock is going to head. If you had to have a trade right now, I would do something like maybe shorting, selling some puts. The reason I like selling puts is that A, I'm going to get paid to do this up front, right? So I'm going to receive money. And B, it will allow me to establish a price point lower. So if I do end up buying the stock, it's going to be at a significantly lower rate. So the question becomes, how low do you think Ford stock could go? Do you think this company would ever go under, meaning it would go to zero? And then from a margin perspective, I like selling puts because with the stock trading at $9.10 right now, that means that in every option is worth 100 shares. So that's $9.10 times 100 shares. That means your total risk right now is $910. So let's say you were to sell the 8.5 puts. I don't know what the price is on that. That would be $8.50 would be the strike that you would sell, or something along those lines. Just an example. The margin that, even though you would collect money, you would have a margin of the value of the stock as if you were going to buy it at $8.50. That's only $850, right? So let's say you were able to sell those puts for even 10 cents, and I'm not advising this, is fully in the air, but if you were to take in $10, or if you sold them for 25 cents, take in $25, sure, you're tying up $850, but to collect $25, and you might not ever have to buy that stock, that's not a bad rate of return for like a month or a 2-month tie up of capital. So anyway, just one of the ideas. There's so many. I mean, you can go more complex for those of you who really love options and look for things like 1x2s where you get paid to buy a put. There's any number of things, but that's it for this week's show. I could talk about options a lot, which I do. I have a weekly podcast. If you guys ever want to hear and learn more about options, it's called The Weekly Option. If you Google that, The Weekly Option Podcast, you'll find my podcast. It's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on Google Play, it's on several different channels. So it's been great. Been doing it for just shy of 2 years. So lots of great episodes, lots of great education in there. So feel free to have a listen. And otherwise, please do continue watching these technical analysis videos. And if you ever have any comments or want to reach out, just leave a comment. I definitely watch my comments, and will respond with you. So thanks so much for watching. Take care. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and happy trading.